Welcome to the 2-Act Podcast, where we cover all things movies, film, and TV. I am one of your co-hosts, gothjon. I'm also here with Adi, and we are going to cover 2016 indie film named Slash, directed by Clay Lifford. I have a little intro written, and then we'll go into opening thoughts. So this 15-year-old nerd writes some erotic fan fiction about two male characters from this TV series of Vanguard, and it's called Slash, or like erotic fan fiction. And then he eventually meets this girl named Julia, who also writes fan fiction at his high school. And you know, the movie is a lot of like you're coming to terms with like your feelings towards like girls or guys, and trying to like find yourself, and a little bit of that. And like any coming up nerds, they find out about a convention where they're going to do some erotic fan fiction reading, and they don't necessarily know that they're minors, and that's kind of where this movie goes. Well, Adi, what did you think of Slash?
Well, I thought, like, who knew fan fiction was so weird, right?
Yeah, no, it for sure is weird. There's a whole Tumblr universe of people doing Doctor Who fan fiction, or fan fiction of like Sherlock, or Star Trek. Yep, something weird. Yeah, if you can think of it, it's probably been written. That's why it's a rule of the internet. Rule 34. If it exists, there's porn of it. Yeah. My opening thoughts is like, I think this Neil kid, the main character, I think he's so fucking gay. And that he's like writing fan fiction about two dudes. I'm just like, oh, dude, this dude's so gay. And then like the film like starts, and you're just like, okay, I have this thought that this kid's gay. And then you kind of like, he's like, maybe I'm not gay, maybe I'm bi. Like he has no freaking clue. And that kind of like resonates with me, like growing up as an adolescent, because you don't necessarily, you're like, well, I'm a nerd and I have a hard time talking to girls, you know, maybe I am gay, maybe I am something different. And then, you know, you try to explore those feelings, and then you find out, oh no, I'm not gay, I'm just a loser.
Yeah, I think it's like, yeah, it's one of those. It's got all the elements of like a classic coming of age teen comedy, and it certainly feels like it heads towards that direction, where it could easily be a teen comedy from like the early noughties. I don't know, like something like in the vein of Superbad maybe, but it very quickly you realize that it's not like, it's got funny moments, but it's not a teen comedy at all. It's actually an exploration of sexuality through the subculture of slash fan fiction, which I think is really niche. And I think it's cool that the film explores that, because I think it is a really like insular thing. I'm not sure it's that open-ended, where you can get into groups that talk about fan fiction in erotic ways, or
it's really internet based. You're not gonna meet at a coffee shop and talk about your written erotic fan fiction with a complete stranger. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be hidden on like a forum of a subset of like an odd like fan fiction. Like even I wrote some shitty fan fiction myself, but it wasn't quite this risque. It was terrible The Legend of Zelda fan fiction. Now, like I said, it's not as salacious. Mine was generally fart jokes and Navi the Fairy being a dumb, annoying bitch. Like, and I wrote it as like a comedy, and we would write this like in middle school. We'd have like this writer group and stuff like that, and never in my mind did I ever think that it would get to like that like corner of the decrepit world. This is very pre-internet. It's when the internet was very young.
It does have that vibe, even though he's like writing on a MacBook, but it feels like, I don't know, like the mid 2000s, you know, like it gave me that vibe.
Of course,
everything about the film, even though it's like only came out at near like less than a decade ago, but it feels
2016.
like it feels like it's set even like way more back in time, you know, like the early noughties. But my impressions of Neil were like, yeah, because it opens up in this like fictional world that he's writing about
Yeah.
this character called Vanguard. And it's like it opens up in this alien world, and very quickly you realize that this feels like, fiction for sure. And then it turns into like this homoerotic scene out of nowhere. And I'm like,
You're like,
am I watching the right movie?
That or John, did you just send me a porn film?
Yeah, pretty much that was my reaction. It's like, wait a minute, what am I watching? And then it kind of cuts out, and you get to see, oh, this is the imagination of this kid, this 15-year-old
Who's
who's
never had sex, which it's clearly shown in his writing that he definitely never
yeah,
has had
mhm,
that.
no,
Doesn't
no,
know what, an adult relationship looks like.
no. I mean, you could see he's so undercooked
Mhm.
personality wise that
Mhm.
there's a lot of internal struggles that he's going through. He's trying to figure out, like you said, it's the adolescent experience of like it's a turbulent phase in one's life, and
You're trying to find out who you are.
yeah, and it's hard because everything's even more hyper extended because of hormones and being in high school and wanting
And
to be independent
the
and stuff
last thing
like
you want
that,
to
or
do is
rebellion.
talk to your parents about it because it's the most awkward conversation. You want to crawl out of your own skin.
I
Uh,
guess that's the phase in one's life where you want to kind of distance yourself from your
yeah.
parents or
Yeah,
your
your
siblings.
friends are a higher ranking than your family in that time. It's I care what they think. I don't care what my parents think.
Yeah, yeah. But Neil comes off as very gay when you look.
He's very gay coded.
Very gay coded. Just looks. I don't know. You could see there's. I think he's part of a school play or something.
Yeah, yeah. Some part of it he even like hits on like one of the other actors because he's
Yeah.
like he's falling is crushing on him hard. I guess that was his first crush was a boy crush,
Mm, yeah. Just
and
from
then
that.
he shows him his fan fiction, and oh god, the cringe. And then
Yeah.
that guy shows it to this one of his friends, this girl, and then they just tease him, and I just want to crawl up and die.
Yeah. It's so like American high school, like uh, because. But I guess Neil shows. I feel like he's not writing erotic fan fiction just to be pervy or anything. I think he
Right.
actually wants to identify and explore, but he knows that he can only do it through his fan fiction
Mhm.
because he lacks it in his real life.
Right.
So
He
he's
lacks experience.
so it's almost like maybe catharsis that he's trying to gain from fulfilling that through fan fiction, but then quickly realizes that showing that to anyone's a bad idea because
It's your worst nightmare. Show it to strangers on the internet that can critique you.
yeah, some of the online stuff is weird too, but like
Yeah, you even had that pop up. Are you 18? And as a
yeah.
teenager, we all clicked. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I guess that's really relatable.
Which is kind of funny in today's times because in America you have all these senators that are banning porn in their state, and you have to buy a VPN to look at pornography.
That's the extent in which, but also like you compare that to back then, it's also way more accessible everywhere. So on in your pocket. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
like this is sort of like set in a time where I think the phone boom was not that big like it is now with our smartphones. So he's still like writing in a forum. He's got been part of this, tries to get into this group of fan fiction writers, right? Which are writing their own and posting their own fan fiction anonymously. But I guess he gets into trouble and then like he meets this girl who
Yep.
is a very fascinating character,
Yep.
Julia.
Julia. Oh, I'm so in love with her. She's a dorky
Goth.
girl. She's kind of goth.
kind of
Oh,
vibe.
I would have
Your side.
definitely gotten grounded over that girl for sure. I would have stayed out till 2 a.m. trying to get in her pants for sure. There's no doubt. And she like cosplays. Oh god. Oh, I have a
Elves.
type.
She has
Oh,
a she has
elves.
a
Oh, I
thing.
love elves. Oh,
You do? For real?
yeah, elves are the greatest. They're my favorite fantasy race. They're better than dwarves because they're not gross and they live forever. They're great.
It's almost like the writers concocted the perfect character for you.
Yep, for me to be in love with.
Yeah. Yeah. She meets him, I think, when he gets into detention or something. And
Yeah. Then she like discovers that he's a huge dork and he's writing fan fiction. They kind of like
yeah,
come
they
together
bond.
with that. Yeah.
They bond over that.
Yeah.
And
That they're
I
both
think
rejected by
misunderstood,
society.
rejected, misunderstood, and more importantly, they kind of acknowledge they're so like against each other's types because Neil's so introverted and she's so extroverted, but she has her own insecurities too beyond the surface, just like Neil. So it's a very like I thought one of the strengths of the film's characterization was that Neil and Julia are like really well-rounded, relatable characters. Like Neil's awkwardness and internal struggle with his sexual identity is very like typical of like one's adolescent experience growing up, maybe. While Julia is like confident yet vulnerable, but
And they're
it
getting
equates
drunk
the
as
dynamic.
teenagers.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
getting how do you say it? I like slobber knockered, getting sloshed.
getting high in the car and just
Yep.
passing out.
And then Neil, being the super nerd, he's like worried that they're going to be able to smell weed on him.
Yeah, he's so. I feel like it's like trial by fire for him.
Yeah, yeah.
He
He's
spends a
you
day
kind
with
of
her, and he does this. He's done like all the stuff that he could never dream of doing.
right. Yeah, I understand that. I met a girl like that when I was in high school. I came home smelling like cigarettes. My mom was like, "You don't smoke," and I was like, "No, this girl I was hanging out with does," and she was like,
Yeah,
"Ah, okay."
yeah. But you wanna hang out with her because she's cool.
Oh,
Even though
absolutely. I'd get into
even though
so
you
much
know.
trouble. It would be so
Yeah,
bad. I would have. Now, I've never drank a sip of alcohol, but for the right girl,
you'd make an exception.
I don't know about that, but I
I think
definitely think about it.
I can relate to that when it comes to cigarettes because I never really smoke. I can't stand the smell of it. But then
Okay.
you know when you're if there's someone you're into who does smoke,
All right, you want to impress them. Yeah, that's why they call it peer pressure.
peer pre-
Yeah.
peer is the
And
right word.
yeah, and I thought it was kind of weird that Neil, he went super cyber stalkery as soon as he met this girl Julia. He's like looking her up on Facebook or whatever. He's like trying to
Who
find
doesn't
everything.
know, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like we're all creeps like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought it was funny that they added that. I was just like, that's pretty relatable. I'm also a creep.
It's curiosity for
Yeah.
sure, and I think like an encounter like that for him is like a meteor striking that he'd never. It's like one in a million chance that because everything that's been set up is like he's just completely a loner.
Right.
He's just looked at in such a non-existent way. But this one girl's attention completely changes everything, and more so because they both get what they both bond over their passion, which is fan
Mhm.
fiction. And I think like I really enjoyed the film whenever it was like about them two or the scenes that involved them two, because I found their exchange really sweet at times really like dramatic. The dynamic between the two was really interesting to explore. I was really surprised how like he really started to fall for her, and then I'm like, whoa,
I
he's
I
not gay at
understand
all.
that. I understand that. Well,
Like
maybe he's
he's not
bi.
gay at all. He's just never experienced the touch of a
Right.
female before.
Right. And then they're like fooling around and wrestling, and then like her sister walks in on her, and I'm like, God damn it. Give your brother a break.
But
Smells like
I
sweat in
gotta I
here.
gotta say though, I didn't like most of the supporting characters. I felt they were kind of flat. I
Right.
feel like caricatures or plot devices.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I could see that.
but whenever it was Neil and Julia, I thought that was the strongest the film was in keeping me engaged. But I found like there's some interesting stuff like with the parents. I thought, but it
Yeah,
felt like a
yeah.
bit underdeveloped.
Yeah, even Julia's mom, like she's a super religious person, and the second she finds out about all of what Julia's going on about, her life is she's going to be locked up for a while.
Yeah.
She's going to be, forced to see God, and I'm sure that'll make her rebel even harder because that's kind of how being a teenager works.
It does. It does. Like, and I think what it does capture is that there's a balance between quirky comedy and like heartfelt drama with witty dialogue and moments of like genuine tenderness, which is really I think that works really well with the whole indie aesthetic, and the soundtrack is kind of like rebellious and youthful, but sometimes the tone does wobble a bit. It gets like from lighthearted to like really serious out of nowhere sometimes, which
Get you whiplash.
yeah,
You're like, I thought we were just fucking around.
yeah, yeah, and then and all of a sudden it's like holy shit, they're like they look like they're gonna get through a divorce or something. They
Right.
look like they're like a couple that's been married and going through a rough toxic divorce,
Right.
but it's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, I did think it was interesting that this movie is mainly about like fan fiction writing. Because when you think about it, so some of the biggest movies that have ever been made are only because of fan fiction was written. Like, for example, 50 Shades of Grey was originally a Twilight fan fiction, which I
Who would
thought
have
that was
thought?
kind of interesting.
Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey gets brought upon a few times in this film,
Yeah.
which is interesting because I remember
Every girl during that time had their shitty Twilight
yeah.
fan fiction
No,
where
I
Edward
remember.
just admires them.
No, I remember when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and there's so much like this hush, forbidden talk about this
Right.
film, and the whole thing is like, yeah, you're right. It's rooted from fan fiction, right?
Hmm.
And I think
And
it's
then
cool the film explores that subculture because it's
mhm.
super niche.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was weird that all the females in my family that were really into that, and they all had this book on their table. I'm like, I don't want to know what this is. It's like that one time I walked in on my mom watching Brokeback Mountain. I was like, I know when I should leave the film.
Yeah,
When
I'm
two
done.
cowboys are trying to unbuckle each other's pants, I'm like, I
Yep,
feel
that's the
uncomfortable
view.
now. I'm gonna go play video games.
Yeah, don't blame me. Don't blame me. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess it's like a lot of artists' repression coming out through art.
Mm, okay.
That's usually what it tends to be with creatives and writers.
Mhm.
You know, they can't experience it, but they need to through their work or express it through their work. So
And I did think it was funny that the teacher, Mr. Ford, I recognized him. So the actor's name's Matt Peters, and he's from Orange is the New Black. I was like, I knew his fucking face.
right, yeah, I think I recognized the
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple
father.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, the father. I think I've seen him in a few comedies. I can't
Mm, okay.
can't fully remember, but yeah, I
Yeah.
guess there's. But it is. But I was surprised because like most of the cast is like really. I don't think I've ever seen most of those actors.
No, or even heard their name,
No, no. In fact, I don't even know like what careers they've had since.
or any career at all, or they just went back to civilian life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
this
it.
movie kind of fell under the radar.
I gotta say, like, it is. I mean, I told you this privately, but it's like I did find it surprising how little discussion exists about this film online, and apart from a few reviews, and even the
Yeah.
reviews are so split in the middle, uh, critics and audience, that
Mhm.
it was
Yeah,
it
the
was
audience is like, "Oh, it's fucking boring," and the critics are like, "This is the greatest thing since sliced bread."
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get
I
both
did.
perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I going back to it, I really liked the con experience. It's very familiar. I myself have been to many cons. Nothing like quite like a weird, creepy, erotic fan fiction panel, but I guess I have been to one similar to that, but it didn't get that risque. It devolved into chaos because the person that was running it didn't show up. Yeah, not only do I not write fan fiction, I don't write it. I It's not for me. Most of the time, I've been to anime cons. I've been to Gen Con like 5 times. It's great. You get to be in a place with a bunch of people you don't necessarily know, but you feel safe with. You could probably sit down and eat with any stranger and strike up a conversation because you know they're also a huge dork. I've lost things at Gen Con. I've found them in the lost and found. It's really a great like get together with people that have like the same type of interests and stuff like that. I felt like for the little that they did show of the con, felt like that was as well. It made sense.
Yeah, no, I think I thought it was really cool. I'm quite I gotta say, it's like I'm quite annoyed. I've never been to a con, and I always wanted to go to one. So especially something like anime, uh, because it's so cool when you see people cosplay and like
Mm-hmm.
dress up, and
Like they did in the film where she dressed
yeah,
up and so did he.
exactly. And there's this one scene in the film. I think he's like going down an escalator, and there's this weird. I don't know what it was, an animal or some sort of a character, but it was a guy who was talking on his phone, and it just caught me off guard, and I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
stop
You'll
laughing because
see
it was like
all
the guy
sorts of
was
weird
like,
shit at cons. You'll
yeah,
see like a guy dressed up as a girl and he's like going to the male bathroom with all the
yeah,
other guys and he's like,
yeah,
I gotta go
yeah,
to the stall because I'm not lifting my skirt and
yeah.
showing everybody my bits.
That's what
Uh
makes it funny.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And then you'll see like somebody dressed up in a fursuit, which if you're not into that, you'll go like, okay, that's kind of weird. You know, just
yeah.
like I'm sure they're friendly and all that. I just don't want to smell them. That's another thing. If you ever go to a con, for everybody else, just make sure you have enough deodorant on. You're gonna sweat. It's gonna be hot and gross.
Mm.
It's kind of like going into like a comic book shop or like a card shop. You know, just a lot of people together, a lot of bo. If you have a strong sense of smell, try to stay away.
Yeah, but it looks so much fun,
Hmm.
and especially when you get to like interact with
Creators.
creatives
Hmm.
and yeah, creators, you know,
Yeah,
voice
I had.
actors and actors and all these, you know, celebrities and stuff from the
Mhm.
community show up. So yeah, I liked. I can't think of many. I don't think I've seen. Can't think of any other film that shows a con like this.
I'm sure there's that nerdy Star Wars one. I'm sure that has some con in. And then there's some con in that Star Trek one with what's his name, Tim Allen. That not Star Trek movie that has some con stuff in it.
Oh, okay. I haven't
Uh,
seen that.
I can't remember what the hell it's called, but it's a great movie, very nerdy and all that good stuff. Yeah, I liked a lot of that. And then even at the con, there was like some like really awkwardness because he's been talking to this one of the moderators from and he told him that he was of age. So they're like trying to meet up, and he's like, when he sees
Yeah,
him in
that's
person, he's
so
like
weird. It's
so
like
like
that whole.
creepy.
I felt like, yeah, the film is like really. It's when it comes to Neil exploring his sexuality,
Hmm.
he has a lot of trouble clicking and accepting the button that says, "Are you over
Hmm.
18?"
Hmm.
But then when he's chatting with this random
Adult,
online adult who's asking him if he's 18 and he likes, big dicks, and I
big
was like,
big dicks. You're right. You're just
"Whoa,
like, whoa.
what the fuck?"
It's kind of
I mean,
aggressive.
is this like
Yeah, like
another hard candy episode?
thank God it wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
once Neil posts his fan fiction, he goes from childhood into the transition to adulthood. He's not quite there, obviously. Teens have a lot
Yeah.
going on, like you said, like crazy emotions, crazy impulses, all the
Yeah.
dumb decisions you'll have to make before you become an adult. It's gross, it's sticky, it's messy, it's painful, but we all have to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's growing pains. Yeah, that's what it is.
And thank God that once you get into that scene where they're in the car, him and this older adult,
Oh.
thank God that the second he admits to him that he is not an adult, he's like, "You need to get out of here. We're not. No, we're
I
not
mean,
making out. We're
I
not doing that."
I think that was like one of the most uncomfortable moments in the
Yes,
whole
yeah,
film.
and I
At that
think
point, I was really questioning, like, because the film could just go take a complete U-turn at that
right.
point and become something else.
Right. I'm really happy that I didn't have to watch something really uncomfortable. I'm glad.
It's still pretty creepy and weird, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
it definitely is creepy and
no,
weird.
there's no
But thank
denying that it is, it's
Mhm.
still fucked up.
Well,
That
that when you think about it, like how many of those interactions are with people that would take advantage. There's To Catch a Predator is like an entire TV show. When you talk to people in
Yeah,
chat
but when you
rooms,
look at him, though, he does not look 18. There's no way he
no,
looks 18.
no, I don't think so either.
I'm just astonished the guy even went for it. Like, it's
He's
there's
like,
no
okay, we need to see your ID.
That's
No
just
way.
yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's a so the whole build up to that before that is like he's with Julia,
Yep.
uh, and then he goes off, he leaves his phone because like he's having second thoughts about meeting up with this guy,
Yep.
and then he nearly bumps into him in the toilet line in the queue, but he gets like second thoughts and darts away because he doesn't want to be recognized.
Mm.
And then more importantly, I think we should talk about the scene where they I think they have a night out, Julia and Neil,
Yep.
and then they have a really sweet moment back in the hotel room where
Hmm.
I think it's assumed they hook up, they
Right.
make out, and they write fan fiction together.
Yes.
And that's
They
the
write
moment where
fan
I was
fiction
like,
together.
this guy is not gay. Like he's not, you know, gay at all. He's
Right.
never experienced a touch of a female before,
All
and
right.
it's like the yeah, it's a
Yeah.
revelation moment for him.
He's like, I guess I'm not gay.
But then she questions it herself, right?
All right.
He says that she's bisexual.
All right.
So there's yeah,
Which,
I think the messiness of the theme of sexuality in the in the film is like explored really ambitiously without like
mm,
trying to be too preachy.
all right.
But
Or make it.
there's a kind of like a tenderness to how they're trying to touch because it is a very touchy subject matter, right?
All
I
right.
mean, there's
Especially when you're
no
dealing with teenagers.
yeah, yeah, like it's not something easy to dabble into when you're trying
Mhm.
to portray it in a story setting because it is complicated. It's like at one point you're convinced he's gay because everything about him,
Everything he
everything.
does is gay.
Yeah, he's literally writing
He's
homoerotic.
like one lisp away from even his mom thinking he's gay.
Yeah. I think his sister definitely thinks so.
Yeah.
He, and that's why she's shocked when she walks in and
Right. Walking on
walking
sweaty
in on
Julia.
yeah. So it's like, and Julia is also like this other. She's sort of a rebel. She's got like
Right.
this on and off boyfriend, I guess, and
Who I think you're meant to hate.
yeah,
He's a
those
douche.
like I said, those characters are like really a surface
One
level
note. Yeah.
one note, and it's like it was just like trying to add more to the characters, I guess, the main
Hmm.
two characters. But yeah, but they're so like caricatures.
Yeah, they definitely are. And he gets selected to read his slash in front of a bunch of 40-year-olds.
awkward is that, right? 15-year-old
Oh my god.
reading.
And then the whole time, like
then-
Julia and him are like talking about like their writing. She's like, you have to add more. I can't remember the term she used, like adjectives, words
Yeah.
that make it sound. Because he's like scared to write certain words, because of course, because he's a virgin and all that. It's
Yeah.
like scared to write, phallic imagery and use allegory and all that.
Do you know what an allegory is? Yeah, I think that was one of the lines.
So it's okay. I didn't do good in school. I don't either.
Yeah.
I was too busy playing World of Warcraft.
Don't blame you. Don't
Right.
blame you.
Good time spent. Got all the best
Yeah.
loot. Yeah, when he's reading in front of the 40-year-olds, they stop him mid-read because like the main lady is like, okay, all right, he's definitely not an adult. We need to get him out of here.
Yeah, they try to make it a dramatic moment. I
Right.
felt like it was all about, and then the guy who he who was communicating with him online sort of stands up for him,
Right.
tries to,
Like
What's-
shit
what's he
on the
think-
main lady and her crappy writing.
yeah,
Her weird Harry Potter fan fiction.
yeah,
Like it's a bunch of kids.
weird. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird.
Beyond weird.
Yeah, but I guess like the pacing in the middle of the movie feels a bit like it's spinning its wheels a bit.
Okay.
Neil's insecurities are hammered home a few too many times. But like
You can't catch a break.
sometimes it felt like they're pulled from a sitcom.
Yeah. Where you're supposed to hear the jazz music. Do-do-do.
Yeah, which kind of pulls me out at the moment. But like,
Yeah, I get that.
But I think like the tension it creates between the two was interesting to see, because there's apparently, I didn't expect when he finally confesses his love. I thought it was a really sweet moment. It takes a lot of courage to be like open up to someone and be vulnerable, especially if they're an avoidant, because it's like, that's even harder. Because avoidance, Julia feels like an avoidant to me. Like she's someone who craves intimacy, but at the same time pushes it away, which is why she's so, on the surface, she can be really bubbly and extroverted, but you can see that there's stuff that's bothered her in the past, perhaps, which makes her, which is why maybe she's drawn to going to the same guy on and off or whatever. But yeah, I thought it was a really like wonderful moment for Neil to, when he finally does overcome that realization of what he feels he's into, and he confesses his love to her. I thought it was like, yeah, it was a really like powerful, sweet moment, which could have been fucked up so easily. Like it could have just come across as like really teen cheesy. But I thought, there was
How many times I've done that and I've been told, let's just stay.
no.
Yeah, borderline that. Just like I see you more as a brother. Fuck me, man. And then I'm like driving home. It's like I should just.
You got bro zone.
No. And then I have like one of my friends there, and he's just like, "Do I need to drive?" And I'm just like, "No, fine. It just sucks."
Yeah, but it turns out that what surprised me was like, I think he admits, like he's very forthcoming. He's not he's not playing games. Like he tells her like, apparently like it was between her and him for the last place, and then he put himself first, or something along those lines.
Yeah, to read in the
yeah. I thought that was it was quite, I didn't expect him as a character to be that forthcoming and honest.
Right. It's kind of against any confrontation.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it reads just like me. Like I understand that. As I have said multiple times in this podcast, I avoid conflict
Mm, yeah.
because who wants it?
And Neil is like, he seems like that type of guy who he's not very confrontational. But there's something about Julia who's so head on that he's just drawn to her. It's magnetic.
Yep, she's the
But I
more
guess that's
bubbly.
but I guess that's the thing, right? You're you can be attracted to someone and you can't explain it why. You're just drawn to them. There's this bond, I guess. But in this case, like what's cool is it's explored through fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what else did you think about the whole bit? Because I think like there's like a lot of dramatic stuff that happens after
Mm-hmm.
the midpoint from the convention onwards
Mm-hmm.
to the end.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's like I really like when they're sitting in the car and she's like, I'm gay and I think you are too. That's why we're so good together. It's just like, what?
That was weird. When she said that, I was like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
confused.
I thought I think it was probably just more for a laugh.
Yeah, it was played for
Yeah.
a laugh. I was confused. I was like, what are you talking about?
Like maybe they're both bi. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the joke. Like they're pan or whatever.
They're they're trying to hide away from their connection by saying that to justify.
Maybe. Well,
This.
sometimes when you get like really serious, some people it's really hard to be at that level. So sometimes you have to add in some comedy to, like bring it down so you're not freaking out as much.
Yeah, I feel like that's where like I don't classify this film as a teen comedy by any means, but there's moments in which the humor lands more often than not, and I thought that awkward moment, you know, was effective. Like small uses of humor here and there
Mm-hmm.
really
Yeah.
does.
Not expecting like a laugh track or anything.
No.
Oh my god! And going back to it, when his parents sit him down. Oh my god!
That's excruciating, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. No
We've all
teenager
been there,
wants to
though.
do that.
We've
Yeah,
all been there. We've all
yeah.
been
When
there.
your mom finds your porn, it's just like, oh fuck. See, all of our mothers,
I can't relate to that.
yeah, all of our mothers are saints for what they have to deal with the laundry and all that. They know what's going on in a teenage boy's life.
Especially if you're a boy, yeah. Especially
Yeah,
if they have sons, yeah.
yeah, they know what's going on. They understand that you have your pillowcase or whatever crazy gross shit that you have. They get it.
I don't know if they get it, but I think they sort of they know
They
they're
try to
aware.
ignore it because
Yeah,
to acknowledge it.
it's gross. It's gross, and I
Yeah,
guess
teenage
like
boys are gross.
no, and I guess it depends too, right? Because like this is a really American perspective,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like in America, I guess like everyone everyone has the talk, right?
it's true.
At some stage. Uh,
Yeah,
it's not always the case in other countries. Like some,
our education system sucks, and in some places in the United States, abstinence is the talk. They tell you not to have sex until you are married. And that doesn't work for hormonal, bodies. Their gravitational pull towards each other. It's how you get teen pregnancy when your abstinence is your problem. And at least in my school, in middle school they sat us all down and explained everything, and I at least had some of that. And then if you have any more questions, ask your parents. Those awkward conversations with your parents. And I was handed like a puberty book when I was a middle schooler. So you have some of that at least if you get lucky, or
yeah.
you're discovering them on a forum talking to a 4-year-old man.
There's, I mean, that could be that could be a film in its own, like discovering how does one discover these things because they're
Right.
not always going to be informed in school or learn about
No.
it educational means. So it's like that'll always be a memorable thing for everyone growing up. I'm sure each one's got their stories about how they, I don't know, watch something or
Watched
heard someone
a VHS tape that a
heard
friend
heard
had.
heard someone
Right.
say some stuff, or like came across a bunch of magazines that,
Yeah, magazines.
because I
My
was a
dad
big
had
thing back in
them
the day. I was
on just in the bathroom, just in his bathroom. Just like,
Oh
okay,
wow.
those are titties. Cool.
You had access to that in your bathroom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad, I like to call him the porno lord when I was growing up.
What?
He says he reads them for the articles, and I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah,
And then I'd be
sure.
like, when
Research
I was
purpose.
a
Yeah.
yeah, and I was a teenager, I was gloating about reading Harry Potter and all. I read 1,000 pages. Yeah, I read Penthouse for the articles. Just like, uh-huh.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, it's coming of age, and it's such a potent theme. I mean, there's been so many films. It reminded me of like this film called Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yep,
I don't know if you've
I
seen it.
like that film. It's great.
Yeah, I thought Perks was like a more effective exploration,
Yeah, it's very
but
quirky. I love it.
yeah, it's super quirky, and again, there's another film called Juno. I don't know if you heard.
Elliot Page. Did
Yeah.
you know that that film is? I think it's technically supposed to be Minnesota.
Oh, is it?
It's
No,
in
I
fact it's supposed to be. So there's a city that's maybe like 15 minutes away from where I currently live, and that's where it's supposed to be based off of. Which
Oh
I thought
wow.
was funny. One of my friends told me that. I was like, really, Juno, the movie about the pregnant Elliot Page, where she's trying to when they were a she trying to go through pregnancy. I'm like, it's supposed to be Minnesota.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, what are the odds of that? I mean,
All right.
but I remember like watching Juno. It's like it was a while back. Feel it's an
Mm-hmm.
old movie now, but like it's
Uh-huh.
like one of those prime examples of like coming of age films that explore such like bold topics that normally you wouldn't see, because normally people like, I think there was a phase where teen comedies were like a big thing, the American Pie films and stuff like that. But it was rare to see films like Juno that were so, I guess,
Real.
real. Yeah, exactly, real, and didn't want to parody the whole thing and make it about sex and
All right.
comedy, and it's like, it's real experiences. I mean, it could be based off real experiences. And this is something that a lot of young adults go through, unplanned pregnancies and stuff like that. I mean, exploring
Thank
this.
God I never had to do that. My mom is someone who had to go through that. I
Oh,
am a child of teen pregnancy. It is
how do
not
you feel about
something
that?
I'm fine with it. I'm lucky to be alive. My aunt tells me, she's like, I talked your mother out of the abortion or something. And I was just like, uh-huh, sure. I'm just thankful to be alive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what a
because it's a
story.
lot of like problems. So my mom had to get her GED and she had to drop out of high school. She's missing too much class from the pregnancy. But yeah, it's a whole thing. And at least in America, you'll see pregnant teenagers all the time. And now, was that whether or not they had good education? Probably not. It's probably just two teenagers fucking around, not wearing protection, not using birth control.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
it's
a product of bad choices. And you got drinking and all that. Yeah, a whole
it
menage
is,
of things that
it
could
is,
go
and
wrong. Yeah.
it's and it can change one's life
Mhm. They
completely.
definitely can.
Yeah, I don't think like Slash gets that deep,
No,
but
no, no. I just
uh,
thought it was a little, it's kind of cute. It's a little quirky, something different.
yeah, yeah, I do appreciate how unique and quirky it is, and obviously this subculture. At one point, you think maybe it'll really dive deep into fan fiction and that subculture, but it really is just a means to explore these two characters and what they're going through. But it
Mhm.
was cool as a setting because that would make it less generic than being just set in a normal high school. We see stuff like that all the time, right? I mean, most teen stuff are just based
like
around that
the
sort of
13 Reasons
yeah.
Why.
Yeah, so many stuff. I mean, it's just based around high school stuff
Mhm.
or whatever.
Well, that's when everybody's like golden era is supposed to be is your high school years. What you're supposed to remember fondly, whether or not you were bullied or treated like shit or, being awkward and writing your weird fan fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought about it. I personally never wrote any fan fiction, but I always thought about it.
Yeah. No, it's a fun exploration of like the characters. Like I keep mine to like maybe like a page or two. I don't go crazy, but when I did back in the day, and I'd write my own characters and stuff like that too. I wouldn't make what they call OCs or original characters because I think that's cringe as hell, and that's completely born of DeviantArt. Like just gross. I don't care about your OC, your own original character for your media that's not related at all because that character is not in your universe.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that for sure.
Do you have anything else for Slash, or would you like to go into ratings?
Nope. I think we can go to ratings.
Go right in. All right, I'll start. All right, so Slash, I think it's a pretty good indie film. It's got a lot of things going for it. It's got some, like you said, some great jokes. I think it's a good coming of age story. The movie, it's very quirky as the characters. Definitely Julia and Neil. If you're looking for something different, I think Slash might be up your alley. That's why I give Slash 8 out of 10.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a love letter for anyone who's felt like they don't fit in, but found their people online or in a fandom. And I think it's really cool that it explores it. And, it's got a lot of heart and a unique angle. And I feel like there's just like some issues with the pacing and the side characters that don't land as effectively, even though it's a lean 90 minutes, I believe. But I think it's a cool film. I think it's a shame that it didn't get more attention when it came out because I am genuinely surprised by how little discourse exists about this film online. So for that reason, I would recommend it. I don't think it's as strong as some of the other young adult films that have come out in recent memory that have been far more, I would say, complete explorations or attempts to explore young adult stories, like Burks of Wallflower being an example. But I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's still a decent film, and I think it will be cool to see how it will be perceived even in further down the line because it came out a decade ago already.
Right. Okay. On that note, I'm going to go write some fan fiction about panty and stocking. That's it from me. See you, Space Cowboy.
It's goodbye from me.